Me and my friend Tony have always had a love for the outdoors. When we were kids, we'd play outside all day long. As we grew up into our teenage years, we still love being outside, but typically we'd spend our time in the woods just behind our houses. These were very, very deep woods. Some areas were so thick you couldn't get through, so we probably only saw 1/5 of what was actually out there. We always pondered what could be in those areas that we couldn't get to. If we got through the thick area of woods and shrubs, that there would be another opening, another area we hadn't found yet. We never did go there because our parents always forbidden us to go that far into the woods, so we always stayed in sight of the houses. We used to have little BB guns and paintball guns, and would set up targets and just shoot them off the trees. We're both in our early 20s now, and we met up at a restaurant just to have something to eat and have a talk about old times. Whilst we were talking, we got onto the topic of the woods that we used to love so much. We knew it was still there, but we hadn't been there in ages. So we decided that one day, in the next few weeks, we were going to go down to these woods and camp out there for the night. We were going to try and make our way through that heavily wooded area that we can never get through as kids and weren't allowed to go to. Just to camp and hang out. It's strange. There's something about childhood desires that don't always go away, and the mystery of that area of the woods still stays with us today. Likelihood was nothing was going to be there. It would just be thick woods for however many miles, and we wouldn't find anything. I wouldn't imagine too many people would have been there, as, like I say, it's kinda out of the way and probably a real pain to get through. But we were determined to see what was there, and if there were any more openings, even to have a spot we could maybe hang out at in the future that only we knew about. Anyway, we went home and forgot about it for a while. We said we were going to meet up in a few weeks, but those few weeks turned into a few months, then those few months into a year, and before we knew it, we were in our mid-20s. We occasionally spoke on Snapchat and WhatsApp, but we hadn't seen each other in a while. One day, at around 2-3 PM in the afternoon, I got a random message from Tony. He asked me if I was still up for meeting up in that spot, and if I wanted to go explore it with him on the weekend. I had nothing I was doing on the weekend, and we hadn't seen each other in a while, so we agreed to meet up, get something to eat, hang out for a bit, then go over to those woods and camp out for a while. To make a long story short, I brought a tent, I got some equipment, I got a lantern and a torch, and all the equipment I thought we would need for a single night in the forest. How hard could it be? I know how to put up a tent, but I've never stayed out in the woods before. Even if anything happened, we're what, 300-400 meters away from houses? How bad could it possibly be? Day finally arrived. Myself and Tony both got ourselves ready, got our tents packed up, our equipment, our torches, and set out for the woods. We made our way to the darkest part of the woods we could find, where barely any light was making its way in. It was probably dusk at this time of day anyway, around 6 PM, so it was hard to see, but that's the reason we have our torches. So we kept going until we found an area that we thought we could make our way through. Like I say, this area of woodland was so thick that you couldn't make it through all the bushes and the trees and the shrubs. I decided that I was going to zip up my coat, put my hat on, pull my socks up, and try and push my way through these trees, just to see what I could find. I told him I was going to do it, and he stepped back. I told him if I needed any help, I'd shout for him. So I was pushing my way through, and made it probably 20 meters into this thick wooded area. I could barely see anything as it was getting darker quicker, and also there were so many bushes and leaves in my face, I couldn't see anything. I kept pushing until I could see some light just ahead of me. Probably a minute later, I could see what was ahead of me. As I always hoped and expected as a kid, it looked as though there was a clearing. However, it didn't go as I expected. What I saw was even better and even scarier than I ever imagined as a kid. It looks as though there was some kind of cave. Now, when I say cave, it was a 6 foot by 6 foot opening that went downwards into the ground. It was almost completely covered by trees and grass, but I could see it went down quite a way. I quickly called back to Tony and told him what I could see. He came bombarding through to get to where I was, so he could see it too. Panting and breathing heavily and sweating quite a lot, Tony could see exactly what I saw. Excited, we decided to push our way through. As we made our way through, we could see the opening even better. This was clearly a cave. It didn't look as though any people had been there before though. You know, normally if you go into the woods and you go to an area that's not on the beaten path, you normally see tins of cans and crisp packets on the floor. Well, this was completely different. It didn't look as though anyone had been here. This was incredible to us, and it felt like exactly what we wanted as kids. We decided to make a plan. I said that we can camp out in the area we know today, but tomorrow we're going to come back in daylight and try and figure out what's in that cave. We'll come back with torches and a lot more lights, so we can try and see exactly where this place leads. For all we knew, it could only be 5 foot deep and absolutely nothing's there. Even if that was the case, it's still cool and a place we could hang out at. So we went back, and around the opening of the woods we set up our camp. We stayed the night and we had a great time. We cracked open a few beers and had something to eat, but all we could talk about and think about was what was in that cave. It was the main topic of discussion, and all we could think about was how much we would have loved this as kids. Anyway, we went back to mine for the day, hung out for a bit, then decided to head back. It was still daylight out, so we knew we'd see a lot more than we could last night. As we made it up to the cave entrance, one thing stood out to me. It didn't look like it fit in with the rest of the landscape. Where we were was heavily wooded. There was grass and trees and shrubs and plants. This bit here was barren and muddy, and the grass was more sparse than it was in the other areas of the woods. It was weird. I turned on my flashlight and my lantern, and we slowly walked into the cave. The first thing that shocked me was just how deep it was. The light from my flashlight wouldn't reach the walls of the cave. This perplexed me, as it didn't look that big from the outside. All I could hear was water dripping from the roof of the cave onto the ground around our feet. We walked extremely slowly, as we weren't sure what we were going to find in here. It had a really strange, distinctive smell. Kind of like damp, but not really. It's a smell I've never smelt before in my life, and I'll probably never smell again. Tony said he was going to go explore the other side of the cave. I told him to be careful and to shout me if he needed me. Every word we said echoed around us. It was really strange, and felt almost like a surreal experience. After he went, his footsteps slowly disappeared, getting fainter as he got even more distant from me. I decided just to scan around and see if I could find anything interesting. On the wall, it looked as though there were markings, but I couldn't figure out exactly what. All of a sudden, from behind me, echoing all around the cave, I heard Tony calling for me to come over quickly. I couldn't figure out exactly where he was because of the echoes, but he flashed his light towards me and I made my way over to him. He sounded a little bit panicked in his voice, and I was confused as to what the issue was. I walked over, and suddenly my heart sank. I could see bones. Bones that looked like they'd been there for a while. These also looked like human bones. There were some shoes on the floor as well that looked really old and tattered. Almost completely disintegrated, to be honest. I also saw an old newspaper propped up on a piece of stone. Now this newspaper was almost completely ruined, but there were a few pages that you could still read. I held up a lantern against it and tried to figure out when it had come from. I held up my lantern against it and tried to figure out exactly how old it was. I could only just about make out April 3rd, 1963. This had been there an extremely long time, and this must be a human body. That freaked us both out, and we decided to leave the cave. Thoughts were swirling in our head. What if those were human bones and someone had died there many years ago? What if they were never found? Had we just found a crime scene? What happened here? We left, packed up all our stuff, and went back to my place. We called the police, and they came over. We showed them where we went and how we found the spot. It was kind of hard explaining to them the reason we was in this cave in the first place, and that we were just trying to explore an old woods that we went to as kids, and find some new places to hang out. But of course we did explain this to them, and showed them where the cave was. We gave the police our contact details, and they said that if they needed us then they'd be in touch. They sectioned the area off, and that was the last I heard for a very, very long time. Now to fast forward to today, it turns out that this was an unsolved murder from way back in the 1960s, a cold case that had been completely forgotten about. If we'd never decided to go into those woods, that case would still be a mystery to this day, and the families would never have had their peace. The case is still undergoing investigation, but what we found that day will stick with me forever. This happened many months ago now, and the thought of what happened still scares me to this day. So I live in a fairly small town. I live on the other side of town to where I work. I commute in by car. Now I could get the bus there, but it's so much easier to drive. In the winter months, when I'm at work, I finish around 6 PM, which isn't too bad, but this means it's very dark. Because I live in quite a small rural town, I have to go through very small windy roads, almost like dirt roads, with shrubbery on either side of them. And at night time, there's absolutely no lights illuminating the road, so you have to be slow and you have to be careful, which I always am. This isn't necessarily a problem in the summer because it gets dark later on, but in the winter months, it's almost pitch black when I'm driving home. I take the same route every single day, and I've never had a problem before, until this one day. I finished work as usual, and everything was as it always is, boring and mundane. I was driving home down this winding dirt road, when all of a sudden, in the distance, I could see the illumination of a figure. Now, I was quite far away still, so I could only see an outline of a figure and I couldn't actually make out any facial details or anything. But it looked as though this person was dressed in all white, seemingly a dress, and had long black hair. This creeped me out, but I kept driving as I thought maybe it was just someone walking along the road, which does happen sometimes. But this time of night in the dark, it's not typical, put it that way. As I got closer, it appeared that this woman was in the road, kneeling down and crying. I stopped my car and observed the situation for a second. Something didn't feel right to me as I slowed down and stopped my car. I was on the verge of getting out and seeing what was wrong with the woman, but something in my gut told me not to. I kept my doors locked and the woman looked up at me. As she looked up at me, I could make out some other figures moving in the bushes just ahead of her. From what I could make out, it looked as though there were masked men hiding in the bushes, waiting to jump out. I quickly floored my car as hard as I possibly could, went round the woman, and sped down the road. I got home, pretty shaken up by what I'd seen. I called the police and told them, and they said they'd send someone out to have a look. Now, I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. What if I hadn't followed my gut instinct? What if I'd got out of the car? What would have happened to me? The next day, the police told me they couldn't find anything, but that there had been reports of similar incidents, of people getting out of their car, going to help the woman, and masked men coming out the bushes and robbing them. I can't explain how happy I am that I followed my gut instinct, that I didn't get out of that car and didn't try to help the woman. Who knows what would have happened to me. I'm now scared to drive down that road at night on my own, and I'm finding alternative routes to get home. This happened probably 15 years ago now, and I still have absolutely no explanation as to why it happened. So, I live in a really big city, and I'm an extrovert, which is perfect for me. I love going out and mingling with people. Despite living in a big city, it really has a nice community feel where I live, and this is what I've always craved my entire life. I work from home, so I get a little bit lonely, so being an extrovert, I go outside and mingle with people all around. I do this every day, and it's one of those things where everyone knows me and I know them. So why what happened only happened to me, I don't know. So one day, I just come back in after going out for a short break and chatting with some of the locals around the neighbourhood, and I sit down in my chair to finish the rest of my work. It's the time of day where it's dark, but not really dark. It's that level of brightness where if you're going to read a book, you need to turn a light switch on. All of a sudden, I can see this light flashing through my window against my wall. It's flashing through in a really rhythmic pattern, and I can't really figure out what it means or what is happening. I thought maybe there was some sort of police car outside, but I look outside and I don't see any police cars. Now there's a row of bushes about 20 foot away from where I live, and from inside those bushes I could see someone vaguely in the distance flashing a torch through my window in a rhythmic pattern. I don't know what it meant or why they were doing it. Maybe it was Morse code, I don't know. I bang on the window and then I run outside and go shout at them and ask them what they're doing. But by this point they were gone. It kind of confused me. Why was someone flashing a light through my window in a slow, controlled manner? Did it mean anything? Were they trying to get a message to me? I don't know. My brain was running wild and I was completely confused. Anyway, nothing happens for around 3 weeks. One day, when I'm doing my work again from home, I hear some posts come through the post box. Obviously, this isn't uncommon, but when I go to get up and see what was there, nothing's been delivered. I was certain I could hear someone putting something through my post box, as if they were fiddling around trying to push something through. But when I get there, nothing's there. I open my door and look around and nothing. No one. No sight of anyone. This is where I'm starting to get creeped out. Is someone playing a game with me? Why have I had 2 weird experiences in the space of 3 weeks? I go and speak to my neighbours about it, and they say that they'll keep a lookout, but they've had nothing happen to them. This is where I'm getting a little bit concerned. I make sure that I keep all my doors locked at night, and I actually put a baseball bat under my bed just in case anything happens. Now, call me paranoid, but why is this happening to me and nobody else? What do they want from me? Is it someone playing a prank on me? Have I got a stalker? What's going on? Anyway, another 3 or 4 weeks passes, and I can hear the postbox rattling again. I walk up, and I can see someone putting their hand through the postbox, but nothing coming through. I quickly run up to the door again, open it, and what I see this time is someone running down the road away from my house. This is when I realise that something's definitely off. I call the police and tell them what happened, but there's nothing they can really do about it. There's no cameras nearby, so they tell me that if anything happens again to give them a call back. This irritates me, but I decide that the best thing to do is to make sure my house is as safe as possible and to let my neighbours know again what's been happening. Again, the neighbours say that nothing's happened with them, but they're going to keep an eye out and look out for anyone who seems suspicious near my house. Another 2 or 3 weeks pass, and at this point I can hear something coming from my post box. This time I'm ready. I run up to the door, but as I do, I realise that a letter has just come through the post box, so I decide not to swing the door open and startle the postman. I pick up the letter and open it, and that's when I realise it's not a normal letter. It's on a A4 sheet of paper, and all that's written in large letters is "Hi" and a smiley face underneath. And that's when I realise that someone is definitely playing a game with me. At this point, I'm ready for this person. I want to find out who it is, so I stay up all night. Because I work from home, I can do my work whenever I want to. I decide that I'm going to stay vigilant and put my work desk right next to my window. However, when I do this, nothing seems to happen for a good 3 or 4 months. I decide that maybe the person just gave up and they were playing a prank on me. In the end, I give up and put my table and desk back to where it was before. I assume that the person was giving up playing pranks on me and that they got bored or something. So everything's normal for the next 2 years. That's when all of a sudden I get a letter come through my postbox that says, "You're in danger," in the same handwriting as before. This is when I realised that things are going to start happening again. To be honest with you, I'd saved up enough money at this point to where I could just move out. And that's what I decided to do. I put my house up on the market and I move out. This is around, like I say, 15-20 years ago now. I moved away and nothing ever has happened since. I hope this person hasn't tracked me and found out where I live now, but it's been 20 years, so I'm assuming that everything's fine. I don't know what happened to the house after I left. I was so scared. I did tell the police again, but again, there's nothing they could do. As far as I know, nothing's happened with the neighbours in that area. I keep in contact with a few of them and sometimes we talk about it, but nothing's happened since. So whether I had a stalker or what, I don't know. I don't know what this person wanted. I don't know if they were going to try and rob me, if they just wanted to mess with me. But why put a letter through my postbox that says "You're in danger" 2 years after the initial letter? I don't get it. I don't get people in general, and I don't know what this person wanted with me. But I'm happy to say that I'm safe and happy where I live now, and nothing's ever happened to me since. And hopefully this person has no clue where I am. I live in an area in England that is particularly beautiful. There's green and pleasant lands all around, and lots of country parks, which I'll get to in a moment. Me and my wife are getting to, but we're not at retirement age just yet. My knees are pretty busted up from lots of hard work throughout my working life, and years of sports before that, so I can't really go on the paths that I want to go on. There's a local village and a school, and my family are nearby, so we're pretty well situated. Anyway, almost every day, me and my wife try and get up and walk our dogs around these country parks. Now there's one of them which is my favourite, but I can't really use. There's lots of hills and lots of areas that are a little bit slippery for me. I really want to be able to ride a bike up and down these hills, but I just can't manage it at the moment. So we normally avoid that one. There's another one that has a beautiful lake that runs alongside the path, which is better in the summer. And there's another one that's most nearby that is pretty flat, and it's almost like a gravel path that runs for a few miles and leads back to a general car park. So that's the one we normally take. Normally I get the dogs in the car. We have 2 dogs, one called Stacy and one called Happy. I know Happy's a funny name, but our granddaughter named it. Anyway, so we take the dogs, we get them in the car, and we walk along these trails. Normally everything's fine, but this one time our dog Happy was acting a little bit strange. She was acting as though she was getting spooked by things, which she doesn't normally. So we kept walking and just found it a little bit odd. That's when we noticed a group of young guys walking behind us, all with their hoods up. Now, I'm not particularly worried about this. They appear just to be walking around, and who knows, they could just be a group of friends that are walking around the path too and enjoying the day. But after another half an hour of walking around, I start getting suspicious. Every single turn we make, they make too. There's various different routes you can take along this path, and they all lead back to the same place, but take various different routes to get there. The chance of someone following you on this route is pretty slim, but they follow us through every single narrow winding path, and at one point they start to get a little bit closer. Now, I'm getting kind of freaked out, and the dogs are spooked out too. My wife says sometimes dogs have a kind of sixth sense, and they can tell when something's not right. Maybe this is the case, because I turn around and I say to my wife I'm going to go speak to the guys. As I start walking towards them, they disperse and walk away into the wooded areas. Now, with my knees being bad, I can't be walking over all the broken logs and slippery leaves that are on the floor, so I just throw my hands up in the air and walk back. I say to my wife that we should head back to the car, and we decide to do that. So we slowly put the dogs on their leads and walk back to the car. As we're maybe 200 meters from the car park, these guys appear even closer to us this time. That's when they realize that we're probably going back to our car, and they start walking even faster towards us. They're probably only 20 feet behind us still, but they're really making ground on us, and with my knees aching, I can't walk much faster. I tell my wife to take the dogs and get in the car, to which she does. She jogs towards the car and puts the dogs in, but as soon as they see her jog, they start light jogging too. This is when I get really freaked out. I'm not sure if I should turn around and confront these guys, or head back to the car. I decide the best thing to do is keep walking at a normal pace, which I do. I get back to my car and my wife has put the dogs in and is sitting in the driver's seat of the car. As I'm about to open my door, the guy starts to sprint towards my car. That's when I get in my car quickly, shut and lock the doors, and tell my wife to drive. We speed off in a hurry and out the gate, just as the guys reach our car. I look back in the mirror and I can see the guys shouting at each other and pointing at each other, clearly annoyed that we'd got away. I don't really know what these guys wanted with us, and I don't know what their plans were, but I'm glad that me and my wife got away. Now, this experience isn't going to deter us from going back to these country parks again, but we're definitely going to have to stay more vigilant. This happened to me probably 8 years ago now, and I'm 20 years old now. I live in a small town. It's not necessarily in the middle of nowhere, but it's fairly remote. I'm outside of a big city, so people still pass through. I've worked the same dead-end job that I've been in since I was 16 or 17 years old. Most of my friends have moved out of town now, so I'm a bit of a loner. We still keep in touch, but you know, it's not the same when you can't see people in person. The shop that I work in is really close to this huge shopping mall. The shopping mall is inside of a quarry looking thing. If you've seen one before, you know what I'm talking about. It's almost like there's massive steep hills all around and there's a shopping mall in the middle of it. It's kind of confusing to describe, but if you've seen one, you'll know. So, I work in a shop that's probably only a 15-minute walk from this shopping mall. Every single day after work, I get off probably around 5 o'clock, sometimes 7 depending on when I start, and I just go for a mooch around the shopping mall. I find there's something so relaxing about just putting your headphones in and going and buying a drink or something to eat and just looking around at clothes that you can't afford or things that you want to buy in the future. Just having a casual stroll by yourself, minding your own business and enjoying your own company. It's something that I've done since I worked in this job, and to be honest, it never gets old for me. My job can be fairly stressful sometimes. It's not necessarily the people that work there. I actually get on quite well with a lot of them, but they're not really my friends. It's the customers that are really causing me problems. They're just so rude to me sometimes, and it really gets me down. So this one day, I especially wanted just to get out, put my headphones on, and just go about my routine, and just try and decompress a little bit. Well, anyway, one day, I was walking out of work, and typically, you have to turn right and walk around these winding paths that lead to the shopping mall. It probably takes around 15 minutes, and it's on a gradual decline all the way down to the shopping mall. That's where the bus stops are too to get out. It's probably a 15-minute drive to get back to my house, and on the bus it probably takes 25 minutes. It's not too far away, and the buses run until about midnight, so I haven't got too much problem with getting home. However, I know of this other way to get down to the shopping mall. Now, this is a particularly lazy way to go about it, but it's something that me and my buddies discovered way back in the day. It probably cuts 10 minutes off the route. If you cross over the road, there's a line of shrubbery and bushes that winds all the way down the path. Now, you would think that behind these bushes is just a gate or something to stop people from falling down the hill. But no, if you push past all these bushes, there's actually a little level of a dirt road that winds all the way down. Now, I say a road, it's kind of more of a muddy track that has loads of empty cans and pieces of burnt wood and rocks and stones all around. Probably only around 6 foot in length, and then it drops down into the area that leads to the shopping mall. It's a fairly steep drop, but as long as you're careful, you can sort of scoot your way down it and get to the shops so much quicker. Now, this is something that we discovered way back when we were young, and it's one of those things that kids seem to know about, but adults haven't got a clue. You know, it's one of those ones. So I decided that this is the route I'm going to take. Now, like I say, I finished work at either 5 or 7, and on this day, it was 7 o'clock, and it was dark outside. Probably not the best time to be doing this, but I've never had any problems before, so why not? So I sort of barged my way through these bushes, scraping myself a little bit, but I'm fine. That's when I get onto the little path. Now, normally no one's there, but as soon as I jump down, 4 or 5 people turn around and look at me. They've all got their hoods up and things covering their faces, so I can't see who they are. I'm a little bit of a nervous person in general, so this shocks me and I don't know what to say. I go to turn around and go back up the path, but one of them grabs me and tells me not to go. This is the point where I'm really scared. They tell me to empty my pockets, to which I do. They take my phone off me and my wallet, and to be honest, I'm pretty shaken at this point. I don't know what to do. And that's when someone else says, take his watch too. Now, this watch is massively sentimental to me. It's something that was given to me by my father before he passed away. So, to me, this is not something I really want to give up. I started pleading with them not to take it, at which point I can see one of them reach into their pocket and another 2 reach into their coats. They start shouting things at me, but I think I'm having an anxiety attack because the words aren't making sense to me. I'm just slowly trying to backtrack whilst they're hurling abuse at me and shouting instructions to me, but I'm frozen. I don't know what to do and I'm so scared. This is when fight or flight kicks in. It's either try and take on all these guys or jump down this steep hill that leads to the shops. Without even thinking, I run and I jump down this hill that leads to the shops. I start rolling and tumbling and barrel rolling down this hill. I make it to the bottom, but I'm badly hurt. My leg felt broken and I couldn't move my ankle. I had a cut on the top of my head too that was bleeding quite a lot. Thankfully someone saw me jump down and they came to help me quickly. I got taken into a little medical room that was in the back of one of the shops. They called the police for me, but there was nothing the police could do. I didn't see any of their faces and they'd run away with my stuff by now. I still had my watch on me, although the face of the watch did crack a little bit as I jumped and barrel rolled down the hill. Thankfully I made it out safely, and to be honest with you, I'm scared to ever go back to that spot. I'll never be taking that shortcut again. I'm happy that I didn't end up getting harmed, and maybe I should have just given my watch up, but it had so much sentimental value to me, and combined with the anxiety attack and the general just surprise of what happened, I didn't know what to do in that situation. I'm not saying I made the right choice, but luckily I made it out okay. Hello everyone, this is the part of the video where there's no more stories, so if you're only here for the stories, then there's plenty more on my channel and plenty of other channels out there that narrate stories much better than I do, but I'm just here at this point for the conversation. It's been a long time since I uploaded, it's been about a month, so thank you for sticking with me, and I've just been so busy that I've not had time to really sit down and dedicate to a video, and also nowadays I just upload what kind of video I feel like when I feel like uploading it. I don't follow any trends. I'm not trying to get a certain amount of subs and views or whatever. I just upload something I'm interested in whenever I feel like uploading it, and I appreciate the people here that stick around for it and show support every time. It really does mean a lot to me. I know we don't have a massive following here, and I know that there's probably plenty more interesting channels with better production, but I do appreciate everyone that comes here. I I feel like this channel has a very nice like comment section and little community where it's like everyone's very kind to each other and very supportive, and that's exactly what I want here. Just want everyone to feel welcome and can talk about whatever topic that the video's on in a respectful way, and I think that's really important. I really don't like toxicity, and I really don't have any time for it at all, so I just appreciate the little corner that we have here. I know that I don't collaborate with other channels either, but that's mainly just because I don't really talk to anyone else. I just do my own thing on this channel, and that's it. I don't keep up to that. I don't even know what's going on in the horror community in general. I don't have a clue who's the new channels, who's the biggest, the smallest. I don't have a clue. I don't know what's going on. I don't watch horror channels much, really. I watch kind of boring stuff, to be honest. But yeah, like, I don't know. I find when you just do your own thing and you don't pressurize yourself into having to have deadlines and goals that really mean nothing anyway, that you are a lot happier in general. So that's what I'm doing on this channel. I just upload when I feel like it and what I want to upload, and I'm really like, I appreciate the audience I have here. And even with like the charity of the month that we've been doing, leave suggestions for that in the comments too for the next one. But it's nice to have a little community here, is what I'm trying to say. I think in general of what I was saying about the whole pressure thing as well, I just find that sometimes you worry so much about something and then you realize that what you're worrying about never happens anyway. 99.9% of the time what you worry about doesn't even manifest in the first place, and you just used all that mental energy and you drained your social battery for what? And you know, and it's easier said than done, I think. But I think it's important to try and set yourself little goals, you know, if you're worried about something. So I'm probably going to ramble on, but for example, if you're scared to have, you've got a job interview coming up and you would normally avoid them because you're scared to have them and what could happen, just make your main goal to walk into the building, and then whatever happens after you've walked into the building, good, bad or indifferent, doesn't matter because you've gone and done it anyway. That's your goal. You just kind of change the parameters of, like, move the goalposts basically. It's not about having an unbelievable interview and smashing it and everyone loving you. It's just about going into the building. So as long as you've done that, you've achieved your goal, and whatever happens from that point onwards, you know, you'll deal with the consequences of that. And that's the way I try to think about things sometimes now. I think it's really, really helpful, and it's a really good way to go about things. You know, for example, if you're socially anxious and you've got to go to a party and you're just dreading the thought of it, you know, just think, my goal is to get in my car and be driving there, or my goal is just to step foot into the venue. I think that by just doing little things like that, you take a lot of the pressure off of the outcome of what you're doing, and it sort of forces you into action more time than not. Because rather than overthinking it and worrying about what's going to happen when you're there, you just focus on what's going to happen just before it, and that's your goal. It's just to do that, so you don't have that pressure of failing or being judged. It's just your own little goal that you know that as long as you do that, then you're happy, and whatever happens, you deal with the consequences like you always have. So that's how I see it, and I don't know if that would help anyone, but I use it sometimes. It does help. I think, really, for me, I've always felt this way. Some people seem to thrive under pressure, and I don't feel like I'm one of those people. Everything I do, I feel like I do better when I'm relaxed, and I don't feel like pressure benefits me. I'm just one of them people. I think the less pressure I can put on myself, the better. I understand a little bit of pressure might be good just to motivate you, but for me, I don't need a lot of pressure on me. It has never benefited me. No, I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but yeah. Do you know what? I'm looking out my window at the moment as well, and I'm in the notorious windy spot, but it's just not windy. I always feel like in September, I don't like this time of year, and it's not because of the weather, because I kind of like it. It's quite nice when it becomes like autumn, but it reminds me of going back to school, and that's what I really. Because I always had that feeling around that time, I'm like, oh, September. But it's because it reminds me of going back to school, and I just want it to be summer. But it's not that bad, is it? I don't know why. I quite like autumn though. It's quite a nice season. I can't wait for Halloween. That's the one thing I love Halloween. Absolutely love it. I should buy some decorations for my room. I might do that actually. Let me know. Have you guys put up any decorations for Halloween? How far in advance do you do it? And what kind of decorations are you putting up? Because I just love Halloween. I absolutely love it. I prefer it to Christmas actually. Even though I went to Costco's recently, and if you don't know what Costco's is, it's just a massive it's like you can just buy bulk food and drinks and everything's just in bulk. But I went there, and actually I went there because they do really cheap the jacket potatoes in there are like £2.50 or something, so I love it. But what was even my point? I've completely lost track of what I was saying when I mentioned the jacket potato. Oh yeah, I know what I was talking about. I went to Costco's, and all the Christmas stuff was out. It was boiling hot, like still felt like summer, and the Christmas stuff was out. It just felt so early. But I mean, I suppose they always do it, don't they? It always surprises me. It never fails to surprise me how early the Christmas decorations can come out in the shops. It's mad, really. Like how it feels like it's still summer. How can the Christmas stuff be out? But yeah, I'm not going to waffle for too long here. Just wanted to do a little quick update for all of you. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you'd like to see next, any topics, and also suggest some charity of the months. And let me know what you're doing for Halloween decorations. Not much, but no. Yeah, thanks to everyone, and I'll see you guys in the next one.